I think most of you guys get back from break because the previous session took a little longer. So let's get started with. My name is Doris Chen. I'm a developer evangelist at Microsoft. So I'm a web person. I'm focusing on web technology as well as HTML5 and JavaScript. Welcome to building beautiful interactive application using JavaScript, HTML5, and CSS. I know this is only half an hour talk and a lot shorter than I expected. I do have content for an hour, so I will actually post my slide and demo on my blog. This is my blog address. As a matter of fact, I post all my presentation, demo, upcoming events, some of the HTML5 training material on my blog as well. And this is my Twitter and my email address in case you have some questions and feedback for me. Okay, so we have a pretty busy agenda. So first, obviously, we're going to actually talk about Windows 8 overview. I want you to get some ideas about what is a platform. And I would assume all of us here are developers. Okay, yeah, what we could do as developers by using HTML, JavaScript, and so on. And then I'm going to share with you really briefly, because only half an hour, some of the new features will be supported in IE 10 as well as Windows 8. And we're going to actually talk about JavaScript for Windows 8 library, what you could do, what are the additional features you could use. And then the most important things, obviously, as web developers, I would assume most of you here are web developers. If I have a web application using HTML5, how easy I could actually transform into Windows 8. So we're going to talk about some of the things there and share with you some of the resources. Okay, so I actually have one quick slide that I want to actually give you some idea about, why you're here listening to me, right? So this is a slide from IDC from March this year. And then we could take a look at the number for different platforms. And one thing I want to sort of point out is currently we have 670 million Windows 7 licenses. So basically there are 670 million users are running Windows 7. And then we were expecting all those people is going to migrate into Windows 8 very soon. There's multiple ways you could do that. If you have some Microsoft subscription, you could get it for free. And then if not, you probably just pay $39 for upgrade fee. And it's available as of today, right? So yesterday, we actually launched the Windows 8 event in New York. And today, if anybody heard about the Surface? So Surface RT is actually available in all Microsoft stores. I think the closest one will be the one in Valley Fair in Santa Clara. So it's totally available, started with $4.99. So if you want to play with that, go there. And it's fully loaded with Windows 8 RT. Okay, so this is just sort of like a one slide to tell you what kind of opportunity we're having here. And then let's actually get into the big architecture. Now, this is a big diagram. And some of you may see it already. But what I want to point out is Windows 8, there are basically two kinds of entities there. One of them is a desktop. This is basically what you see on most of the Windows desktop already, right? The other part is what we call the Windows 8 style application, which is what we're going to spend some time on today. One thing I want to point out is for the desktop app, if you do a web application, you probably will use, say, HTML, JavaScript. This is sort of like a business as usual. It's like a web application running in a browser like IE or any other modern browsers, right? Same thing. Now, moving over to the Windows 8 style, it is a native application. However, you could leverage your skill set. You could still use the same HTML, JavaScript, right? And then, as a matter of fact, the web content here are running at exactly the same JavaScript engine called Chakra. So basically, you could assure everything you're running on desktop in the browser, you will be able to safely, seamlessly migrate into Windows 8, right? So this is something I want you to sort of like, be aware of that. And the other thing is obviously being the native app, Windows 8 app, if you have some app here, then you could actually freely talk to Windows runtime very easily. Okay. So now some people still look a little puzzled. They were saying, exactly, what is exactly, the web application versus a Windows 8 application, right? So for one thing, they both use the same technology. They use HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, especially for web developers. These are the web skill set we already have. So you don't need to learn another language or another platform to really develop Windows 8, right? Second thing is, obviously, web application. What is a web application? You have a website. You have multiple pages. Those pages running on a server, right? This is a web application. Now, Windows 8, what is that? Basically, it is an app. Will actually install locally on your machine. It is a native app, just like any other native app. And then it has a direct access to the Windows runtime, the underlying layer, the low layer, right? And then the Windows 8 application running, you could have multiple of them running, and then all of them could actually share the information, right? So this is difference, from the web versus Windows 8. And I hope you get some idea, right? Okay, but the skill set you need to develop, they are the same, right? So this is actually the key thing for this talk. All right, so next, let's take a look, a very quick demo, right? So I'm going to actually show you a very quick demo. This is actually a web-based cut rope, right? Some people probably familiar with cut rope. This is totally developed in HTML5, JavaScript, and it could run in any modern browsers, not just IE, right? So when the internet finishes loading, it's a little slow now. So you will see this is the cut rope look and feel. Okay, it's almost there. And then I'm probably not going to wait for that. I'm going to actually show you how quick we could actually do it as a Windows. So same app, same code behind, right? We actually move it on into a Windows 8 app, which is this guy here. The music. Okay, so this is, again, cut rope app with HTML, JavaScript, and you could basically play it. It is a native app, and you could see all the content, even though those are the web code, right? Web content is actually very, every pixel takes the screen. And then this is basically HTML5 app, but running as a native app on Windows 8, right? So you see the performance, if I don't tell you the OS, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference, isn't it, if you play this game, right? So this is on Windows 8, all right? So let's go back to our slide and continue. So let's see if this one, this will finish loading. Okay, so this is the web app I'm talking about. You could actually run it in any browser in case you're interested. It's called cutterrope.ie. That's a URL, so you could play it, all right? Okay, so so let's talk a little bit about oops. So let's actually start to talk about the HTML5 in IE10, right? So we know that starting with IE9, which is should be the latest browser on Windows 7 if you're running that. They already start to support quite a lot of W3C standard HTML5 and the CSS3 feature. So all the features which is in black, those are already supported in IE9. So starting with IE10, we have a lot more new features, which is all in blue here, right? Supporting IE10. For example, there's a large set of CSS, which is all new feature which is supporting IE10, which I will talk a little bit more about that. There is a lot of feature people ask, like the file API, the HTML5 form, drag and drop, And then as well as the local storage, for example, the IndexedDB, app cache, right? And a lot of other features such as WebSockets and the web workers. All those things are supported in IE10. So you will be able to use that. And then these are the common, sort of like people asking all those nice features. So we're all supported in IE10. So for example, WebSockets, this is actually a way, to actually let you to mimic a multi-threading environment in JavaScript, because JavaScript is single-thread model, right? So you could use web workers will let you to mimic the environment for multi-threading. So you could actually use web worker to initiate a service to serve as a separate thread so that you could do a multi-threading kind of programming with JavaScript. WebSocket is another way, basically is event-driven kind of way. Think about a chat room, right? So basically it is a way for the server to take the event and the broadcasting to all the client registered with the server. This is how WebSocket, and it's used a lot in the games and a lot of what we call new way of doing web, because it's not something like a user initiate a button or link to do something, right? IndexedDB is another way you do, this is the standard HTML5 way to do the database, right? So you could actually do local storage with IndexedDB. ECMA 5, IE10 fully support ECMA 5, including strict mode, right? So strict mode is very nice. If you have a JavaScript, it won't compile, but strict mode that support will actually give you some warning if your code is having some problem. File API, geolocation also support audio and video for HTML5 so that you don't have to have any plugin in IE10. IE10 is totally plugin free. There's no plugin, right? And the touch enabled browser. And also touch is a very, very first thing for IE10. So there's a pointer events, quite a lot of other events will be supported for IE10 as well as for Windows 8. So as forms, validation, all those things were spelled. And there's an additional feature for IE10, it could check the spelling, actually. So that's kind of pretty cool. So, and again, all those features are not IE specific or Microsoft specific. This is standard HTML5 feature, meaning you could use that and then run it in cross-browser with other browsers as well. Right? So, some of the CSS3 features people would be interested in, also supported in IE10. So everything supporting IE10 meaning supported in Windows 8. It's the same programming API. It's the same technology behind. You could see 2D, 3D transform for CSS3 is supported, as well as animations, transitions. And there's a great support for the layout, because a lot of time we kind of like want to know how we're going to do the layout, right? It's just not a table, maybe something more complex. You could actually use grid layout, which is CSS3 W3C standard, to do any kind of grid layout. And there is another supporter called Flexbox. For example, you want to align the buttons vertically, or you want to align a button horizontally. So all those things would be very easily by using Flexbox, by changing some of the CSS3 attributes. You will also need to probably work with the gradients or text shadow, right? And then there's some other things which is really big for which you have what we call a content flow, right? So you would have a very nice flow. So instead of have a one column, you could have a multi-column, right? So just by changing one count called column count, you could change from one column to 3, for example, right? And then there's a lot of position float, kind of exclusion kind of thing you would be able to do. So actually, I would like to show you a really cool demo for the position flow. This is what I'm talking about. By the way, all the demos are available on IE test drive. So just search for keyword. So this is basically what we call CSS exclusion group. So we call it position flow. So what happened here is, oh, interesting. You don't see anything, huh? Okay. I see. Okay, I have to get out of slide mode, and then I could get into, even though it shows on my machine. Okay. Let's try one more time. See it? Okay, great. So again, this is IE10, which is IE10 running on Windows 8. It's a native application. And usually we use this is, a few years ago, I'm asked to work on a project to have a company logo and to drag things like this within a particular text content. And then this particular content is actually, it's just basically using the CSS exclusion feature there. Isn't that cool? And then it doesn't matter what kind of layout you have behind. For example, I have a multiple column. Just by changing the column into 2, I could do things freely like this. I could have a grid layout underneath that. You have a layout like this, and the position flow could also do. So this will be very interesting when you have a touch-enabled device, and you will be able to drag the image or whatever logo icon with the text area to have some really cool animation without really writing any JavaScript. This is why it's so cool with CSS3. How many of you are actually familiar with CSS3? So we know most of us are Java developers or JavaScript developers, but CSS3 is really a really cool way, to allow you, without developing any JavaScript, you could leverage the CSS3 decorative way to do things like this. Isn't that cool? All right, so let me go back to my presentation. Okay, so okay, the other thing I want to talk about is it's a very important feature in responsive web design. It's called median queries. How many of you heard of that? So median query is really good for you to support it because we live in a big world. We have so many different devices with different size, different characteristics, different resolution, right? So you want to have a nice way called CSS3 median queries to sort of like group them together so you could all support it in a maintainable way, right? So in Windows 8, we also leverage the CSS3 median query. We use something called view states, right? So you could see we have 4 different view states. This is a full view. This is when we turn the tablet. It's a portrait view. And then you could actually running 2 apps at the same time. This is called field view, and this is called the snap view. So 2 views, you could put one in a smaller area. For example, you have a particular sort of desktop you want to work on your app, right? Develop your app. The other is maybe is your iMessage window or your stock. You want to take a look at stock market. So you could do 2 things at the same time. Now, how do we do that? So this will give you just some like a sample code, sort of like snap code to show some of the snaplets. So what you see here is we're defining, this is a standard median query way, you say median screen, and then you call it a view state, and then you define this view state with 4 different states, right? Like a full screen, portrait, fill, and a snap. With each of those particular view, then you put your particular content, your layout for that look and feel, right? So let's see if we could actually give a quick example. Say this is one of the authoring tools I'd like to share with you. It's a free tool. It's called Brand. If you downloaded Visual Studio 2012, it's part of that. It's a free tool. It's called Brand Express. And then what it does is it will actually let you to visually do the configure your CSS and HTML, right? It's an authoring tool. So for example, this is what we call the full view, right? And when I do the portrait view, I will be changing my layout a little bit, doing things like that. Notice the part here is actually changed. The way here is actually loaded here. So when you do a portrait view, you probably want to change the layout. You could use median query to do that. As well as you could do a little field view to do that. And then it's work in progress. I still need to fix the snap view. I have to think about if it's a small region like that, what I'm supposed to do, right? So, and then this is one way you could actually see different view, as well as you could change the resolution. For example, you have different device type, or I have different resolution. You could use this tool to check your look and feel. And then I'm not going to go over the detail, but then for each of those, there's a live DOM. So you could actually take a look. For example, let me change it to a full view. It's a little easy to show. So if I have this, I click on any of them, then you will see where the CSS is, where the property you could configure into this. And it's kind of interactive that you could do that. All right. All right. So let's go back to slide. So by now you should get some idea about how median query is used in the Windows 8. So let's move on. So the next, what I want to do is I want to actually show you, in addition to all the standard HTML5 CSS feature you could use for your app, there are also additional Win.js called Windows 8 Library for JavaScript. So Win.js is providing better way for you to integrate with Windows 8 environment better and provide a better API for you to do an easy job. For example, they provide things called namespace, right? Namespace is actually challenging in JavaScript. A lot of the time you have to write your own routine. It's supporting Win.js, so you could use the routine to do that. Support asynchronous way to do programming, right? So it uses promises a pattern to do things. There's a lot of ways to make your navigation. Think about it, it's a native app. So navigation will be handled very different from the web tier, right? So there's navigation package you could do. There's easy data binding. You could have easily to change one parameter. You could actually interact with the JSON data, or you could invoke a RESTful web service on the server side and grab the data. And there's a lot of animations and templates utility you could use, all right? So, and I will actually briefly go over some of that. The other thing is it has a really easy kind of tool to help you get started with. So you could go to this link, Wins 8 download, to get Visual Studio tool. Visual Studio is a free tool. Okay, all the Microsoft tools, share with your tip. All the Microsoft tool, if it says Express, E-X-P-R-E-S-S, Express, those are free. Those are free for you to keep forever. So if you download that, it's a free version. So for Windows 8, you want to get a Visual Studio 2012. It's running on Windows 8. Okay, so, and you see, I will show you the Visual Studio, but a part of the tool, you see the brand, which is I show you in the previous slide. Okay, so I want to actually start to do something which is totally a web application, all right? So I'm going to actually go to Visual Studio. I'm actually going to, this is a web application. This is not a Windows 8 application yet. And what you see here is I actually put everything into one file so that you could see what I have in this HTML file. So in the HTML file, what I want to do here is I want to have some fun with the HTML5 video. So I actually just use the HTML5 video tag called video. And then I use some mouse control to do the pause and the play for that video. And then because I want to make sure it goes across all browsers, so I keep two formats for this HTML5 video format. One is called MP4, one is WebM. So I support both formats, so it will run across all modern browsers. So this is just a very simple piece to play a piece of video. Afterwards, I said, why don't we just have some fun? Why don't we just use, say, canvas as a container? So add a canvas line here. And then I go to JavaScript. What I want to do is I want to create a reflection of that video data. So then next what I do is, I'll briefly just go over the code, is I grab the video component, grab the canvas, and then get a context for canvas, which is always 2D in this case. And then I use translate and the scale to produce a flip kind of video effect. And then because I think maybe you wouldn't be able to tell if it's a pixel by pixel kind of copy, right? Then I actually put some gradients there to create a two kind of color, right? So you could have a little gradient there. As well as, and afterwards, this is the last part, which is basically how you're going to draw this video or image onto the canvas. This is a pretty standard way. You always use add event listener and can play. You want to make sure the video can be played. And then you're going to set an interval method and then draw this image, okay, for the video data. And then define the video size and the frame. And then I put a few rectangular so I could have a little like a fading kind of effect there. And then put a 60 milliseconds, that will be my interval. This is a pretty typical way to do 60 milliseconds for drawing the video like this. And that's about it for the JavaScript. So now I have some video reflection on top of that. Now, I haven't talked about a CSS3 yet, right? So here, I put some CSS. Very simply, I try to define some wolf font. In this case, it's called Good Dog Web Font. It's a wolf font. And put some background image there. And then defining, use a wolf, that a Good Dog regular, that font I just use for wolf font to define my header. And then as well, define my paragraph. Now, here's something I did. When I hovered over for the video, as well for the reflection of that video, I do two things. One is I do a box shadow by using CSS3 feature, and then I define the position. The other thing I do is because a designer told me if you have a border, if it's not around the corner, it's not a good design. So as a programmer, I said, let's do some round the corner. So here, what I do is I actually put some border radius, right? Depends on how you want the curve to be, you could define your radius. And then put some transition there so that you could have some little kind of nice little animation effect onto it. And then with like less than 100 lines of code, that's about 93 lines of code. So this is the whole app for video reflection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually run it in, this is IE10, right? So we probably need to, you look at that, you probably need to adjust a little bit, right? So this is a reflection, and then I turn off the sound, so if you want to hear it, it's the true video, right? And then what we see here is if I mouse hover it over, right, you will see the box shadow, the radius, the round corner effect with a hover effect. When I go outside that, the video stops playing because I use mouse over, mouse out to control the play. When I move it in, it's continue to play, right? So this part works totally fine. Next part of what I do is I actually hover it over to my reflection data. And it seems like it's still working, with all the box shadow, radius, all those things. All right, pretty good, right? We're pretty happy with this app. It's not bad with all the wall font on top. So next, what I want to do is I want to do something really brave. I'm going to close this app, and I'm going to actually create a brand new project, a Windows 8 brand new project. What I would do is I will use a blank template. You could always choose different template for grid layout, for split, for fix, and so on. But here, I'm just going to choose a blank layout. So when I do that, I will create an empty project, but it's a Windows 8 project. So what I do next is I'm actually going to go to my where my web application is, where I write the code, which is this one here. Yes? Oh, because I started 10 minutes late. Right. So I'm going to drag this, just drag this into this project and ask you to replace some of the default ones, right? So I said, that's fine, let's do it. And I'm going to hit that famous run button called F5. And let's see if it's going to work. Windows 8, haha. So the app is dragged into from web to the Windows 8 platform. And then we see touch is working, as well as I hover it over. Mouse control is still working, right? So that's perfect, right? Isn't that great? All right. So as a matter of fact, I actually have quite a lot of content, but because I have 1 minute, I'm going to wrap up really quickly. But before I do that, I'm actually going to show you one of the app I added into more like a Windows 8 kind of application. And you will see this is the first app. That's what we did, right? And then you could see a lot of other apps. For example, I could have another video kind of scope kind of app. But these are all HTML5 web application. I just ported it into Windows 8, as well as we have a Video City kind of app. Could move around, right? Very interactive with all the touch effect and so on, right? And this is what we call the app bar, which is actually replace a lot of buttons or the link or tabs on your web application. So you could play with the night views like this. You could play with the day views and so on, right? So I'm running out of time, but I want to just point out to you some of the resources you will be able to use. So one quick thing I want to actually share with you is the point. So touch is actually all based on what we call single point. This is actually submitted to W3C as a standard way, and W3C already take this proposal. This will be, hopefully will be a standard way to implement a touch. So once you use a single point to implement touch, then all the mouse, keyboard, status pen, it's the same implementation. You don't have to worry about the other input. Just implement point, that's a touch way. And the mouse, style, keyboard, all the inputs are going to be the same. It's probably just say, you touch, you implement touch, you get all the other input for free, all right? So with that, I will just show a last slide, which will be our resource slide. So I could point to you where the resource will be. So, what you want to actually probably want to take a look, more information is from, if you want to take a picture, this is picture time. You want to get it from Wings 8 Dev Camp to get all the different content, the tools. One more thing I want to emphasize is this is actually a very good link you want to write down. It's called Wings 8 Generation App, J-App. Why? Because you can sign up for a free 30-day support for your Windows 8 development. Get a free consultation, and if you submit an app, you are the first 2,000 people submit app. We will give away a slate for you for the first 2,000. So the program is still on. Sign up and get your free slate, right? And then one more thing is if you happen to be free tomorrow, we actually have an event running in Mountain View. This is a URL. It's a whole day training and hackathon for Windows 8 and HTML5. And if you don't have time to attend in person, the next link is a live stream link. And then thank you very much.